he had to deal with was the things that Dr. Bawumia was saying at the time. And at the time, he had a lot of space on the media, and so he did say a lot. But before I go there, I wanted to ask, from what you know about our system, that the pay structure, how do I even say it? The one that's managed by the Controller and Accountant General Department.
Yeah.
From what you know about it, is it possible to use Ghana card to address the issue of ghost names?
We started this through the biometric.
Okay.
So it was actually a program that we started. If you look at my tweets, I showed, in as far back as 2011. Okay. So it's not even a 2013 issue. That's when it goes to the genesis of the giftness or the PFN reforms that we're doing. Okay. So we did biometric registration for the civil servants. Substantially, and we had a platform, and I challenged that also. We started reducing the ghost names. I gave the numbers based on those reforms that we were making.
Okay.
So as was typical of the speech, he takes credit for a lot of things, including even let's be modest, including the platform, the e-government platform on which most of these reforms are being implemented, was placed during President Kufuor's time. And we decided to put all the government, the government IT issues that we're doing, from gift myth to revenue mobilization to an extent outcomes, which was today's outcomes, which was West Blue.
Okay.
So the fact that we call them automation, somebody is calling them digitalization or digitization, does not make them new. It's just playing on words.
So essentially, what it is because of you that, because I realize nowadays, anytime a public servant is recruited, they go through a biometric registration process. So that started in 2011.
It started as far back as 2011. By 2013, it was crystallizing. And we have interviews on, during the break, we'll look for some of these, or if somebody can go to my tweets, I gave a series of tweets to show that many of the claims that he made when he went to recently to Controller and Accountant General. Yes, some addition were made. You can't deny that. Governments succeed each other. But to say that ab initio, you are the one doing, many of these things, as I said, not even giving an acknowledgement of the e-government platform. E-government is a World Bank, assistance. So you go to many countries. It's just like the gift base. When we say the gift base, Ghana integrated financial management information system.
Okay.
If you remove Ghana, it's IFMIS. And there are many countries, developing and middle-income countries, who are implementing IFMIS systems.
Okay.
It's designed by the World Bank. And they give us the financing and everything, which is fully electronic, and therefore you can implement them partially as we were doing, systematically. So many of these claims, are just, flamboyant claims. Yeah.
Interesting. But, okay, so let's...
In fact, we had... Let me give you the systems we initiated and which were operational.
Okay.
We have the budget system, which we call the Hyperion. And then we have... Actually, when we talk about the gift miss, it's mainly the Controller and Accountant General system. Then we started the automation, the revision of the automated payroll, system.
Okay.
As a subsystem to interface with the core accounting system, which is the giftness. Both are in Controller. In fact, many of those functions, which date back, to POOFMAP, you recall POOFMAP, and which were again stopped. As with many of the issues that are stopped, and we'll come to that. If you look at the IMF program, many from giftness to accounts payable, which is another, just simply we call it contract database, to which will feed the accounts payable and all those things, We initiated, all of this, long ago. So all of these are on these platforms. And many of the difference is that it used to be centralized, highly centralized at the Ministry of Finance. So, for example, we got resources for controller to take control of the accounting system. When you read the budget and the Appropriation Act is approved by Parliament, when you send a warrant for payment, it's not Ministry of Finance that manages that. Because everybody is supposed to have ledgers and whatever. That is controller. Okay. So we strengthen the controller, IT department to enable them discharge that function and detach it from Ministry of Finance. Okay. So the systems are the Hyperion, which is used, at the Ministry of Finance, for the budget. Okay. When the budget is ready, it is downloaded because there are ceilings there, and in principle, you shouldn't exceed this into the controller system, which is the IFMIS. Okay. But normally we use GIFMIS to describe the whole IT system. Okay. So that is and that one has, the ledgers, various ledgers for all the accounts heads from compensation, interest, and and all that. What was not available because we were on to say technically cash basis, was a very solid accounts payable system, and that's the one which has not yet been completed, which the fund is now saying should be completed. That's the genesis of the, the contract database, which was inflated in 2017 to give those numbers which were forced, to reverse. The next major step was to interface this with Bank of Ghana, the government accounts in Bank of Ghana. Okay. Yes, because government is my banker. It's like you have in this business, you have your accountant here, right? You take your money to the bank. You should prepare reconciliation statements on it. So Bank of Ghana is government's banker. And Bank of Ghana, with Ministry of Finance, approves, accounts to make it convenient all across the country. So all these were going to be networked. It was already there. In fact, the late Mr. Na, who died, that he was to chair, the committee, Ministry of Finance, Controller, Bank of Ghana, and other committees. Then we had to complete that work. That was going to be GIFMIS Phase 2, which is just, and then we had a revenue systems, which we started with ICOMS, West Blue, single window, but which was...
because he took credit for that. They called him. He said immediately he came in a few months after he said he had implemented a paperless policy at the port.
No, we did a paperless. It was just we abolished the use of paper. Okay. Just as we abolished the use of paper warrants. It used to be paper where in the files, big files, and we automated that. And ICOMS was single window. It included Port Health. It included, Ports and Harbors Authority. Anybody that had anything to do with the import had to put those documents through. There was a system. It was managed from the customs, headquarters at the ministries. A whole block that used to be, was devoted, just for that. And then it interfaced with the port. And then not all the border entries were completed, but you had airport, you have a flower, you have Lubu and all of it. So it was a system, and we were going to go to a Phase 2. And the Phase 2 was to extend this, to the border post. And like the GIFMIS accounts payable, which was a Phase 2, we were going to do to control budget overruns better. Okay. We were going to introduce a similar comprehensive income, that is domestic tax system, which will interface. And why do we need that? Anybody importing who brings in goods pays, import duty, excise, and more importantly, VAT. And we know that under the VAT, which has been completely bastardized now, you get the businessman is not the consumer, so he's giving a credit or a refund. So if that information is sitting electronically in the customs system today, then with a coding of all the tax offices, which we are going to do, it's not just national identification number. We're going to code all the tax offices and put them in the domestic system. So together with your national identification number, again, the conversion of the TIN to national identification number was started on all those schemes. It's there. So the reason the domestic tax system is weak is that was not done for 7 years.
Okay.
It's a conditionality which was even waived by the present board. Even the, understand there has been tenders and things, and for the last 1.5 years or so, no decision has been made on them for whatever reason. But that was going to be phase 2. Okay. So to use the example I was giving, your import duty, import VAT that you paid is what you are going to deduct from the output VAT that you are charging other businesses or customers. So, for example, if somebody imports, we don't manufacture many of the equipment here in the studio. Somebody imports them, he pays VAT on them, right? He's not a consumer. He sells to Radio Gold, right? Radio Gold, when you do adverts, you charge VAT and the rest, okay? So he will deduct the VAT he charge you, right? He's supposed to charge you VAT when he sells to you, but he will deduct the VAT he charge you from the VAT he paid at the port. Okay. You follow it? When you give an invoice to somebody placing an advert, you charge VAT, right? That person, if it's a business man who is advertising, will also deduct your VAT from the VAT that they are paying. So you see, there's a linkage. So the plan is, if we are that serious with automation, why did we stop it? Because if Radio Gold files their returns with GRA, and they say, I got an import VAT, I paid, VAT of so much to importer so and so, right? And importer so and so say, I paid VAT so much. All the information can be sent electronically to your domestic tax office, okay, which is located somewhere in this vicinity, right? So when it comes to do an audit, they have the information already. It's not that you are going to do, yes, the e-VAT without this interface is very cumbersome. Yes, so e-VAT is supposed to be part of a comprehensive domestic tax system.
And that has not been implemented. As far as you know.
It's a conditionality. Like the phase 2 of the gift base is a conditionality. Vice President didn't mention or any of this. But it is continuing to take credit, for everything. Now, the difference is both the revenue system, the third one was the HRMI system, which we put in place. I was mentioning the systems. I ended with. And the reason we implemented the HRMI system is that Bank of Ghana is not the accountant for government. The accountant for government is the Controller and Accountant General Department. Okay. But because we didn't have the gift miss and other, it was difficult for controller to know. But ultimately, all payments go to Bank of Ghana. So the Ministry of Finance and the government was relying more on Bank of Ghana. Okay. But by strengthening it, it's like filing your tax returns, you pass most things through your bank. If you don't have solid records, you just take your bank statements and then you say, oh, I paid this, Yeah. But it's not your accountant. Okay, the same way, many people went to the controller to resolve their recruitment issue, to resolve their issues of, promotion and enhancements in pay and everything. And that was because the Office of Head of Civil Service and the Public Services Commission did not have a human resource management system. Okay. Right. So that is the HRMIS, which we instituted to interface with the controller, because they are the ones who recruit. It's not controller who recruits. Okay. And when they recruit, then they send the information to be put into the payroll. So I'm taking time to explain all of this, is that it's a comprehensive reform that was started by the Mr. Mahama administration.
So this are not...
And so you pick just elements of it and then you just blow it. It's supposed to have a comprehensive phase 2, which involves the revenue, domestic tax system, and, even the HRMIS. All right. Because that's to remember why Public Services Commission. Remember the Public Services Commission is in charge of the other public servants. Okay. SOEs and the rest. They recommend the appointment, everything from the chief executive to the president and everything. So to the extent that is part of all of government. If you want to look at larger government, the SOEs, which are government has shares in them, then you are not going to manage their system, but their system should interface. with the core system,
including
all agencies, universities, which are autonomous, agencies, departments, what we call DVLA and the other systems. But to the extent that you are reliant on a budget for some money, or you pay money to the government, you have to interface and provide that information for us to do budget management. It doesn't mean we are going to manage, your operation. So this is the comprehensive system which started with the Mahama administration.
But you called it automation, and he's calling it digital. That's the only difference.
Yes, that's it used to be called.
And yours was going to be much more comprehensive than the pick and choose that he's been doing.
What is in place now is a comprehensive system.
Okay.
So whatever one talks about the PFM or GIFMIS reforms or whatever, is supposed to be part of a comprehensive system.
Okay.
But because that comprehensive system, you remember that expenditures were being made outside GIFMIS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was being made outside GIFMIS, and it's still GIFMIS is not so comprehensive. So that is the task that has to be done. It's not a selection of elements, and that is where the payroll system at the controller is where the automation and use of natural identification numbers and things came in. Remember, the loan is a Chinese loan.
Mm.
And in fact, even when you come to gifts, the gifts loan and all of those things, they all have antecedents. Some from His Excellency President Kufuor's administration, the e-government platform, which also is a World Bank assisted, platform.
Okay.
So I just want to give your listeners that the thing was more ambitious than just picking, elements of it and claiming credit for it.
And I'm sure there was many more things you heard yesterday. In fact, a lot of the beginning of the speech in itself was where he sought to do a comparison between their record in office. Of course, it was always going to be compared to the government.
But that's the dilemma of the whole thing. I mean, sorry not to, The dilemma of the whole thing is that you take credit from the beginning, have truths, some of them, and then in the end you are repudiating the same record. Is it the dilemma of the vice president?
But he said he was proud of the advice he gave, just that he's been focused on digitalization.
But I'm telling you that digitalization is part of a very comprehensive system, including the fibers. Including, you can get Felix or somebody to come and, speak to that, Honorable Haruna and the rest who are in charge of communication, Honorable Bawumia. It's all these are on, you can't do digitalization without the means, to network. Most of them started, under the Mahama administration. And
so you have to set up the infrastructure.
That's the e-government platform we started, with His Excellency Kufuor. But it was coming to a tail end of it. So the credit goes to, but the most comprehensive deployment of it, and there's a private sector ones, the fiber, which is used for internet, and the fact that Communications Authority, approves and gives licenses and things for it. There's no big government investment. Yes, the initiative may be, and many of these were laid. They were laid already, for the internet, and it's the fibers that are some in the sea, some on land, including the VRA. Fibers which Gridco now uses, which enables us to use, the pylons and others to communicate. So it's a very comprehensive system. The thing is that what the Mahama administration was doing was a consolidation of all this and making sure that it touches everything government. And that's why you call it e-government. You're moving from paper government, administration of government, to electronic. Yes, so the word electronic is already there. Could we have called it D-government? Where D stands for?
Digitalized government. Well, but let's then go back.
But what is less electronic about GCNet? Everybody knows about GCNet, which has been in existence during the URP SAP era. What is less electronic about it? I spoke about PUFMAP, which was to be automated, which is actually elements of which is some of the lessons went into GIFMIS. Is it less electronic?
So essentially, there's nothing new that he's brought in.
And when you talk about the planning, yes, and the platform that was laid for, many of it. But like every big system, there's something new that,
you can
yes.
Okay.
But to take credit for, all of this, from biometric to all of, you can even go to the loan elements, the loan for gifts, which is even the Momo and other things which was talking. Yeah, they already used to use, was it chips or something when you go roadside and so it started a long while ago.
But he said
I'm saying that that's the dilemma. You want to take credit, but repudiate other things. The vice president is a substantive position. So under the constitution, if the president, so all the time the president has been traveling and all that, were we under supervision of a driver's mate without license? So I hope to see by the end of the year.
So from your perspective,
the man who is going to give the apprenticeship certificates at the end of the year is still waiting. We are still under an apprentice, which is why between now and the end of the year, IMF program and everything. So when is the apprenticeship certificate coming? So
from a perspective, you cannot take what he calls digitalization out of the bigger government agenda.
No, it's been called automation for a very long time. In fact, the digitalization is a new which came with, the IT. It's coming as somebody coming next year, for example, applying ChatGPT and the rest. AI, and taking credit. They are convenient in automation. To be like somebody coming and bringing, because the platform and everything is there, getting AI applications, and then say, I'm in charge, I did everything to do with payroll, I did everything to do with whatever. That intelligence system. So it's progressive. The World Bank, IMF, and everything, they have digitalization conferences and the rest. I attend some of them. So it's a global terminology that, emerged. It used to be just called automation. And by the way, if I live to see the mainframes that were in IRS, I don't know where, we don't keep things. I hope they are in the museum somewhere. But there were big mainframes. You go to, and you see the racks and things built. Yes, I saw it. Today, much of that will go on the laptop.
That was the beginning of it all.
Yeah.
Huge,
yes.
I see.
When they used to be Central Revenue Department.
Okay. Before they became the
Internal Revenue Service, now integrated with IRS, as IRS and VAT as a domestic tax division.
So in taking credit for all of that, he's taking credit for the entire history of automation that has gone on, or is basically just saying that nobody...
It's not just in the digitalization, space. It's... If you take the docking sites along the beach, which was... Then the CDB loan project, which was undermined.
So the fishing harbors that he's talking about.
You go to what we call the multimodal. They were not just for the beach, for the sea beaches. They were part of what was to be along the water lake, docking sites for the water lake. And anyway, CDB, the Sano Hydro loan and all those things which have been used to do all of this. The Sano Hydro was a major player in the CDB facility. In fact, they were in the country, remember they were associated with Bridham and other things. Yeah. And that's President Kufu.
See. But then, okay, so that is about the digitalization part, which he said he has been focused on. Then there's the part about the economy, which of course was the promise President Akufo-Addo made to us. The promise that he was going to come and take charge of the economy specifically.
Let's have a session on it. What we need is a record from, we normally use 2013 these days, because 2013 was when the second rebasing was done. Okay. Before the third, which is 2018 or thereabout. But you can also go back to 2008. Let's look at the span. Don't pick, don't pick averages for 2 years, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and whatever, when the numbers, were in any event. Why is he using numbers which the IMF revised back in Article 4, 2019 to strike averages, deficits, and the rest? All those things were revised. All those things were revised in the Article 4, 2019. The deficit was 7.2, it's not 3.7 or 3.9. it was 7 and then 7.2, 2018 and 2019, all these were revised.
Is that why you
But
said?
they have never, they continue to tell Ghanaians that they did very well, during those days. And that's because they left out the bailout costs, the energy sector costs, including ESLA, and all that.
Is that why you say some of the things he said were half-truths?
Yeah, half-truths, yes. But even back then, again, on the question of accountability, right? We have the vice president, current vice president, holding the late Misata responsible for the work of his boss because he was the chairman of the economic management team. That was the only reason. You want to repudiate yours today? Do you want to repudiate yours today?
Just now he said your successor is the one who is in charge.
The successor is what?
That's Mr. Ken Oforiatta.
Is what?
He is the one who has been in charge.
Why did he throw the 170 questions to me at the time? Why did he throw the 170 questions to me? That's a short question. Why was he throwing them to, Mr. Misata?
But Kantua,
who was married, was responding, but the rest was just, too much. Many of them were just questions and the rest.
But can two administrations not operate differently? That you come in and perhaps you do not get as much influence that as you thought the vice president being in charge of the economic management team would have.
But anybody going in for such a position, should know the protocol of the vice president's office. Right? It will be like me sitting here, taking full credit for sinking funds, which we all now know could have helped minimize, if not eliminate, the debt default. Heritage Fund and others. If they were not approved in cabinet, how would you implement them? And had they failed, would I take credit for them? Responsibility? Sure, because the implementation phase of it is very important. But it doesn't absorb the top, which is why when there's a credit, it must go to the top. Because we are discharging delegated responsibility. Yes. So I'm saying that, and as somebody who, Bank of Ghana and all that, in the civil service, public service, should know the protocol of the vice president's office.
Ghana's gold.
That's on the point of delegation. But you also know that office is substantive. Why I say substantive is that the first person who takes over. You're right. And so if you want to test, I don't want to bring memories back to Ghana. If you want to test how prepared a vice president is to take over the administration of the country, go back to 2016 when Professor Mills died. Within 24 hours, President Mahama was sworn in. He didn't give excuses when he came in. That's how substantive the vice president's office. So, in essence, we are saying, allow me space between now and the end of the year, and then I would, when I take over, I will be. No. In my humble opinion, no. So either you are taking, full responsibility, delegated responsibility, or you are not. You don't pick and choose. Take credit for some aspects of the administration. And then the ones where you even criticize most is the current president and economist. You heard President Kufuor. Much of his admiration for him was based on the economic paper and things which he presented, which as a seasoned politician he could put in context. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes. Yeah. So for you, it's either you accept full responsibility, or you deny responsibility and also take credit.
There's merit saying as full delegated responsibility, but you are somebody you cannot repudiate. No.
Even when in office, for example, everybody obviously talk about the powerful finance minister like Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, who people are wondering if someone like Dr. Bawumia in his position can influence in one way or the other when it comes to economic policy. You are saying he still has to.
Let me make a comparison of yesterday's event with the days when he used to go to Parliament when the budget was being read. Did you see any of those stalwarts? Okay. When Ghanaians were given the perception that things were good. In my memory, is the vice president who went to Parliament. Yeah. And remember when, Ken fell ill, the debate was whether even the president could delegate to anybody.
Yeah.
It wasn't there speculation that, this could be done.
Yeah, that the vice president could actually present the budget statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we're talking about deep constitutional issues. I listened to your last, interview with, the professor. We're talking about deep constitutional issues, which we shouldn't take for granted for anybody coming to office.
Well, if you're just joining us, I have Honorable Seth Terkper in studios. He's former finance minister. Because there are many things that happened there yesterday that took a lot of people by surprise. For example, for someone who says, yes, I'm chairman of the economic management team, were you surprised when he said he was going to scrap the e-levy?
I wasn't surprised at all. I had already said that the e-levy wasn't going to give us any money. Remember, I said it in the studio. It wasn't going to give us the amount of money. It would give us some money, but it wasn't going to give us the amount of money which they were anticipating as a solution, present as a solution to everything, that way. And therefore, if he is going to dissociate himself from, the failures of the administration, one of which key initiatives were the e-levy, he had to repudiate it. So all that was doing the consistency with what I said earlier, repudiating anything that didn't work, and taking credit for things that work.
So clearly he was.
Is the e-levy not electronic?
Yes.
Is it digitalization?
But so from your perspective, that was him admitting the e-levy has failed.
Absolutely, because it's a plank. Remember, it was a thing. It was the one thing that was held up as to why we were not going to the IMF. Let's not forget. Some of us said at the time that this is not going to, unless you don't know the tax system, because and even when the tax was being duplicated, this is an issue for the tax, because the example I often give is Senna, myself, and our salary, right? We pay PAYE, the tax. The accountant withholds. It gives you even your net amount of money because it's an obligation of GRA. So his responsibility here is to deduct. It's no nonsense. Nobody can come and tell him, don't deduct my PAYE, right? Then you take your pay, you ask him to send yours to the bank, which he did. I go in outside, collect put in my pocket, right? Same pay. You are the more savvy, user of, AI even these days. So what do? So you link, your phone to your bank and to all those things. And the two of us, good friends, brothers, we go buy a shoe. I take my wallet and make my payment. You take your mobile phone and you make your payment. You pay a tax, I don't pay a tax. In addition to the VAT, which the two of us are going to pay. In addition to the excise, if it's a drink, alcohol, which we two of us are going to pay. So sitting at the bar, you want to show off Momo. or other forms now, more advanced forms of electronic, the banks are all connected. Spam, you make your payment, right? Or even as a first step, if you want to use cash, you stop at the ATM, use your card, and you take it out. Bam. The tax, as we attempted to do, should be on the fee, which, like the architect's fee, which is attracting VAT, like the bank charges, those are for services. That's the consumption part. We should attract the tax, and that is what
the
VAT,
fee that the service provider charges me for moving money. That is what
should attract. And if we are going to be honest to ourselves, that's the point I'm making. That is why VAT was introduced, because VAT is a consumption tax, and to the extent that we are taxing consumption, whether it is banana. Okay, we don't tax raw food. Imported banana, yes. Imported banana is, attracts, those sort of things. Or it is a vehicle you are buying or anything, for consumption as a, let's use, smaller examples for people. So shoe for the children, dress and whatever, that's the consumption of the household. That is the essence of the VAT. It was to replace all of these multiple taxes that we had, so that, workers, household, everybody will know I'm paying a tax and it's one. It doesn't differ between you and me. But we came in again, it means we didn't, the lessons of Kumipreku were not, well grounded. That's what it means. So when we did a revamp of the VAT tax in 2013, we said all non-core financial services, as part of other services, the fees paid for those services would attract the VAT.
Okay.
Because it's consumption. But we don't put a tax. The fact that you are using your money, to pay, because when that is the income side of it. Because when you earn the income, the tax was collected.
Okay.
Now you are consuming after that tax was collected, which is the income tax. So you are paying a consumption tax, and we unified it. But we said, if it is alcohol, it's injurious to your health. You may end up going to the hospital. So pay excise, right? If you are buying an imported mic, when somebody is also now manufacturing mic or assembling, because the fact that you are importing it, pay another tax, which is import duty, because we want to protect our local industries. So these are the pillars of our tax: the income tax, the VAT, excise, and import duty, and they have objectives. We also use the income tax as tax incentives. We grant exemptions or low brackets or no taxation for low income earners, which is 0 before you move to 5, then you move to 10, is with 10, 15, then, and it ended at 25, which has since been increased to 35 by the current administration. Only that's the income tax. But when you go and buy an item in the shop, it was flat 17.5, including NHIE, NHIL, and Get Fund. Which were deemed, because they are also consumption taxes, were deemed to be, a VAT. What did the administration do? They took the, the example I was giving, the import of the equipment, and then you advert and the rest. Now the NHI and the Get Fund is split from that, and it's being called straight levies. You are denied that credit. So the straight levy you pay, you cannot deduct it as input tax credit. And an expectation that they will earn more money, but it's only encouraging evasion and avoidance. Yes.
Then,
and that is the reason, evasion and avoidance. I heard another segment when I was coming and listening to one of your interviews. It's those plethora of taxes. Businesses and consumers learn, to evade and avoid them because it's punitive. We where avoidance is legitimate. They look at the law critically, get the accountants, consultants, and things, and tell them, well, if you did this, it doesn't offend the law.
Because of the punitive nature of the tax system.
That's the essence of it. But you can look at the revenue. I said we can do another session on the numbers so that we can take some of the numbers here, because I like to be prepared, even though I know some of the numbers. But the tax to GDP ratio has not increased since 2015. It's only this year that we are being told it's been broken. And we are going to look at it critically, especially the one in the IMF. The numbers that have been given to the IMF is the latest. And the government. You see, and it's because you want to use tax to resolve everything, not expenditure. You don't want. This is the first government that is doing an austerity program without looking at its expenditures critically and making savings.
So our suffering is because government's focus is on taxation.
Using tax, and that's why the IMF is giving the warning. You told us you use revenue. You told us these are the angles. I remember the IMF has a technical assistance department. That's the other thing we don't know about the IMF. They have tax experts. They have in their what they call the technical departments, technical assistance department. They have the people who may be sitting in Bank of Ghana now, Ministry of Finance and whatever. They are not in the Africa department. Most of them. Although they move in between, to go and work. Yes. So when they are coming, those technical people also come and mission. And so they had the technical discussions, and you say your solution to the problem is you use taxes. So the government cannot, So the fund is saying, wait a minute, we just went to the board, and the expectation that you were going to bring in, so much. I didn't bring my document. Okay. I would have given you the percentages, which they promise would associated with each. We can do a second. I'll bring my documents in. So it's there in the IMF document. So if you are taking it out, it means that your revenue is going to go down.
Okay.
And your deficit will not go down. Your borrowing will not go down. So what is the substitute? That's the dilemma of the government now.
I see. Well, and I think this morning, like you were saying, I was just having a conversation with the Secretary General of ICU on this matter of the VAT on electricity. Initially, what was told us that cabinet level is that they had withdrawn it. But now, if you read the statement they issued, they're saying that they are now going to have dialogue with the government. You are saying it's because of what they've told the IMF.
Yes, absolutely. It's there.
So you're saying that they could have chosen a different route?
I'll leave that responsibility to the government. We just see what.
No, I'm just saying that in terms of choices.
Yeah, choices, yes. That's why.
So they had a choice to make.
That's why President Mahama is saying that we are going to look at everything. Yes.
So if you go back to them and say that, okay, we are new. What we want to do is focus on cutting expenditure so that we can take away some of the taxes. They will listen to you. They will
you have to come back and sell that to government, to Ghanaians.
We see.
Through parliament. Because this was listed in the last two budgets and the media review. The media review in particular, the previous one and this one, when we're going to the fund.
Because everything that we face nowadays is blamed on the IMF. Okay, so first, before I even go there, I don't know, because he used some figures, and you were talking about the selective use of some numbers. And this some comparison was still convinced that even between 2020 and now, they are still doing better than growth figures between 2020 and 2016. Do you accept that?
Why did he cite our 2.8 as the lowest? It's not the lowest. And then he comes to averages. When their least growth number was 0.4, almost zero, or almost negative. Just 2 years ago. That's a selective use of numbers which I'm talking about. And that's a hallmark. From when the administration and the Veep as candidate was attacking administration, using selectively, using nominal numbers. we've been spared in this one. The fact that the value of the cedi is the same. Yeah. I used to go back to 2008 and show how one cedi was equal to, $1 as a result of cutting off, zeros.
The plenty zeros.
Yes.
So you said you were spared in this one.
I said Ghanaians were spared.
Okay.
In some of those examples that were being, because they've come under so much scrutiny and disbelief, so it's no longer using some of them.
But do you accept his conclusion
That
based on the figures he used, that even in their difficulties, they've still done better than you?
with difficulties.
The difficulties that they said they've confronted over this period.
The main one being COVID.
Russia, Ukraine.
I said yes. No, when that comes, I don't accept it. Because I've said in this studio that they should tell us how they couldn't use 6 billion US dollars, not Ghana cedis, to turn around the economy, the money they got on account of COVID. And I count it for you. Can I repeat it? They got 1 billion loan on our backs, COVID loan. 1 billion SDR, these two from the IMF alone.
Okay.
That's 2 billion. 1.7 billion from Bank of Ghana to support the budget. Right? That's what, 3.7 billion. 250, in fact, it has increased to about 400 from the stabilization fund. So if you add that to the 1.7, that's 2 billion. So we're talking about 4 billion at that point. Then take the World Bank, African Development Bank, and others together. It will give you a clean 1 billion again. That's 5 billion. Then add the fees we were paying by travelers, what China gave us, all of those. It's almost 6 billion. To resolve COVID. So even I'm going to say that yes, COVID is the severest. And that's I would say is because you minimize the crisis, which we were saying were the problem for it. Both domestic and external crisis. The global financial crisis, which was the toughest, which came into Professor Mills's laps. Right? You minimize that. Right? And you say, no, but it was the toughest before COVID. And out of that lesson, we said, let's put money aside, for future crisis stabilization fund, which you came to clean the buffers. Those were the reasons we left the buffers, to manage the economy, well, so that against those shocks. Right? So, and then fast forward, you can't do so. Right? But what's doing so? It was a breach of the gas pipeline. A lack of flow, of gas from Nigeria, wasn't it? Even when we had the trouble, we couldn't put, into a VRA. That's how come VRA had to incur those deaths and things which led to ESLA, and the rest. Right? In the midst of all of this, we did all of this single spine. You know how heavy the arrears and things were. But you minimize this and you keep just saying, COVID is unprecedented. Before COVID, global financial crisis was unprecedented, and before, in global terms, the Great Depression, was the toughest. All of this. So yes, so you should anticipate that you can't run an economy, for a very long time, 4 years without a crisis. And I'm not mentioning our domestic crisis, drought, during the Rawlings and other administrations, but I'm saying that none of this crisis prompted any of our government to get assistance of more than 1 billion or maybe 1.2 if you add World Bank and the rest, to the programs that we have done. So if I'm even going to grant, for COVID being severe, which I don't deny, what did we do that we couldn't turn around the economy? And we took just about 1/3 to add to it. We took just about 1/3 of the IMF program that they took over. We are not going to take over just about 2/3 of so was also taken by this current administration. And then we have 3 oil fields. Right? Output increased from about 70,000 average to about 200,000, close to about, let me say, 180,000 barrels per day. immediately upon coming into office, 2017, for which investment, no contribution came from this administration. It was, remember the 10 failed and some of our way. And we have gone a whole 8 years without even one failed coming up. So, no, I'm not accepting it. Because I'm saying that even if I have to, accept it, you have to tell me, how come you couldn't use $6 billion to turn things around? And then the second reason is that the IMF is still repeating it. I didn't bring the document. That there were pre-existing conditions and a gap. I used to say that there was a gap before COVID. So there were pre-existing conditions. It's even in the current, document. There were pre-existing conditions, which means that we had our difficulties. And you can go to Article 4, 2019 and 2021. I've said it in this studio. The fiscal gap was there of about 5%.
So you're suggesting that the monies that came in were enough to ensure that government managed the crisis that COVID brought in such a way that we did not get into the kind of financial crisis we
I'm
felt
saying 6 times more. So give me the numbers to tell me that the effect of the COVID crisis is 6 times more than the global financial crisis. For me to believe you.
But is money enough?
Pardon?
If you're managing this kind of crisis, because he was talking about...
But that's why I'm giving you the numbers. I said go back to the Rawlings administration order 17, and the dollar doesn't change in value. So cities I'm talking about. And I'm saying none. None of the 17 programs, including MPP and everybody, from President Kufuor to, none. From Rawlings through Professor, all our presidents have gone to the IMF. And I'm saying none of them. Let's restrict ourselves to the IMF and just even take the IMF, And we are adding 3 billion. So we are taking for the funded loan, 3 point something, 5 point something billion. 3 billion plus COVID 1 billion plus SDR 1 billion, plus how do you call it, the ECF 2013, which His Excellency, let's take that, that's even just, so 5.3 billion. From the fund alone within this period. And I'm saying none of our governments have gotten, 1 billion from the IMF. And if you add the World Bank and the rest, I would vouch that they never got anything more than 1.5 or so. So I'm giving you numbers to buttress what I'm saying.
Are you suggesting that if they had applied this money correctly, we wouldn't have seen, inflation that went to 50%?
But inflation was caused by the money which Bank of Ghana gave them, which is monetization. Everybody knows that now. That's why, because if Bank of Ghana has been stopped, you are seeing the inflation element of the element of that deficit financing coming down. It's not for any major effort. Then we've been lucky the rains have been good, so agriculture. But if you go to the real economy and the industry has been negative twice.
So the things he's talking about, the exchange rate improvements in the exchange rate, he says it's going to be a hard work.
You took the thing from 3.7 or something for, let's take it, you took it all the way to 17, and then it is falling from 17, it's now at 12, because of, some of the things I'm talking about, stopping Bank of Ghana and all that. Because we depleted Bank of Ghana for the first time, we used to have the average of, if you drop below 3 or 2.5% months, we were just at about 1 month. So Bank of Ghana reserves were depleted, and it affected the exchange. Who caused it? Who caused the depreciation? So you become reckless, you take the thing up, and then you take credit for bringing it down. But then you are bringing it down, and it is at 12, 13 as we speak. Right, the official is probably at 10 point something or 11. And you are saying you are doing more and better than somebody whose, depreciation, was, below 5. What kind of ridiculousness is this?
Because he demonstrated using percentages in terms of the percentage by which the CD depreciated under them, even when
He
they
should
were
use,
15.
he should use a real percentage, because didn't the Minister for Finance tell us that we will be hitting, 1 trillion or something of GDP?
Yeah.
What contributed to that? Is it on oil? Is it on service tax and the rest? So why pick and not relate it to the fact that the economy itself has been growing, even if in terms of annual, it's been going down on account of 3 oil fields and the rest. So compare the revenue. If you get more money, it's like 2 brothers, right? The talents. You are giving, 5,000. I'm giving 3,000. We take it to the bank, and then you come back and you tell your father, "Oh, I've done better than, my brother. My interest rate has gone up, to 5, and his is still at, 2 or 3." You forget that you were giving a bigger amount of money to take to the bank, and he had a lower amount of money because he's a junior brother.
So they have. So for you, because listening to it sounds like even the basis for the comparisons do not exist. One, they've had far, far more than you.
Yeah, of course, the GDP. That's why we express everything in terms of GDP.
And so they should be doing far better than you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're surprised when they go back to your difficult.
Remember, even with our 1 oil field, don't forget, and our borrowing. They say we borrow. They don't deduct the 250 million borrowing that we left for GIF as seed capital, which they are using. They don't deduct it when they are saying Mama borrowed so much. The decent thing to do is to deduct that one. You follow my point?
Yeah.
Yes, because that was borrowing, which you are using. They don't. Right? They forget that with 1 oil field, we did a sacrifice. Today, what's the balance in the sinking fund and the rest? From 3 oil fields, we get 250 million stabilization, which was used for COVID, the same COVID. Why didn't they leave that money aside? So yes, to whom more is given, more is expected.
That you do not still understand why they are in the situation they are in.
Even though they are, of course, it's baffling.
With the COVID excuse and everything,
yes.
still you think
it's like even the NDC itself. It's like even the NDC itself, right? Comparing to Ms. Mahama and saying that, yes, to a extent we did, we stabilized the economy better. Did they have oil fields? Did they have oil? Did they have oil? Did President Kufuor have oil? So you got to do the comparison between MPP and MPP. And then this and then this. So yeah, we expect them to do more. I mean, as Ghanaians, not just me. I said yes.
have they? Because this is something the vice president said. Have they done well for you?
The numbers are showing. It's not my opinion. The numbers and the facts are showing. Can I count them for you? Deficit. You took deficit around 6%, and then you took it above 10, 12. So you are doing better. You took debt at 56%, let's say 57. You doubled it above 100, and you say you are doing better. We just spoke about the 3 oil fields and the performance under that. Babo, you defaulted. That's a shame facing the country. Bankruptcy. You defaulted and you are begging for restructuring. When we did our restructuring, we had a difficulty in Spain and the rest, and the loans that we took for them. We have defaulted. So they shouldn't be belittling these things at all. We don't have access to the capital markets. Tell me, from when senior minister started taking us to senior minister Barry took us to, the capital markets, which of the governments? The worst was interest rates were high. Even that their interest rates was phenomenal. as well as zero coupon, where you gave up almost 200 million to get 300 million, was phenomenal. Right? And today, the bond market that we created in Ghana, they cannot trade on that bond market. So I said, what are we talking? I'm talking facts. They should deny the facts, which I'm talking about now. It's not about my opinion. That's the facts. And these are the things which we should focus on to show, that our administration did better. Completely. Absolutely, with less resources. We didn't default. Did we default?
You did far better with less resources.
Of course. Taking it all alone. And what I can do to increase, to grow other areas of the economy. Because they're interconnected.
I see.
I'm giving you the numbers by comparison. And I'm giving you 4-year numbers versus 8. I'm not going to miss Mama and adding all the excellent infrastructure and others. The infrastructure we did. Don't forget that it started with a school under trees and other things when the President Mahama was vice. That's when we were beginning to get the elements. Today many of them are in the bushes. If they did that way, why have they completed the youth schools and the others?
I see. Well, we're still in studio with Honorable Seth Terkper this morning. In fact, we've been talking about what the former vice president, the current vice president, I said former vice president, the current vice president talked about. And if you want,
he sounded like a former vice president.
He sounded still for you.
I repudiating everything. He was living in this glorious future.
but did you get and that's something that I was asking the political sciences from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, the matter of him sounding more because for somebody who criticized your administration so deeply, did he come across as sober as would have been expected in the midst of the difficulties?
Yeah, well, my views could have been a bit more reflective. They were reflective in certain aspects, but yeah.
But the reflective in certain aspects.
Yeah. Which he goes on to repudiate.
So he was reflective, but then refuses to take responsibility, even for responsibility.
Yeah, completely repudiate. Implicitly or explicitly.
Is that a good sign for you?
I leave that to Ghanaians. Mine is to sit, yes, show the comparison. And let them make the judgment. Because we must match facts by facts, and that's the only way we're going to run this, these elections. Facts with facts.
Well, we have to take a break and come and conclude this. We all have those days when you are low on everything, energy, time, cash, and even airtime and data. Well, that's why MTN Extra Time is an airtime and data advanced service that allows you to make calls or browse the internet, even when you have insufficient balance. All you have to do is dial *506#, go through the prompts and select the amount of airtime or data you need. It's more than simple. Doing your favorite things on MTN means you don't get interrupted on airtime on data. Please remember, all terms and conditions apply. We still have Honorable Seth Terkper in studio with us. We'll be right back to conclude our conversation today.
Ophelia, did you brush your teeth before eating?
No, Mommy. Anytime I use Daddy's toothpaste, I get bruises in my mouth, and sometimes I feel like vomiting.
That's not an excuse. As a child,